You don't understand, I'm from the ghetto lands that I represent. Like I'm a shady thug, product of the 80s drug movement. Now I'm making mad improvements, doing my thing. I reckon you better recognize before you start stepping. You better check your guys. I own this, so enter at your own risk. Fuck with me, might leave you homeless.
Yo, it's the Philosophy King. Just want to come at you with a new one. Here's my question. All right. Have you heard about this new issue? Well, it ties into an old issue, respecting the opposite sex, respecting the person you are attracted to, or whoever it is that you're reaching out to on the streets. It's called a cat call. People do it. Here's the thing about it. I've never catcalled in my life except for one time, and this was a success for me. So I don't know how to put that. It was probably not even an actual catcall, really. So I need to clarify that this was a story that doesn't really fit in with the typical narrative. But before I tell you, just keep three things in mind. I was 17 at the time. Later on, I would go on to work in a profession where I'd be talking to people on the street. This was a company that I ended up taking over and continuing for years. So it's kind of like something that I later discovered that I'm a natural. I talked to over 2 million people in the job capacity on the street, with 1 million being women. So this was all very much before then, and this was my first time doing anything on the street, talking to people, and clearly the evidence will prove that I'm not a normal person. I'm above average when it comes to something that works when it comes to getting people to talk to you on the street. When it comes down to this situation, it's obviously either just looks or charming, and I don't know. I'm going to guess it's personality for me. The second thing is I hate catcalling very much. I find that it's stupid. It really bothers me. I don't do it. The third thing is that this is the truth, that I really don't know if this was a catcall or not. So please, if you could tell me. Here's the story. Late night, walking home, me and this lady walk past each other about 2 a.m. on my block. It's a nice, safe street. The block had its own security. We were passing by a private park on the block, so it was nice and safe and relatively well lit in a quiet residential street. We kept walking past each other. I turned to look, she turned to look. We saw each other. It was awkward, but we both kept walking. I kept walking. I don't know how that sort of became my decision. It just sort of happened. I wasn't really thinking anything would happen, so I continued walking. Then I turned around again. She turned around again. Again, it was strange, very unusual. So at this point, I hadn't said anything, and that maybe was actually working to my advantage, the fact that I didn't just jump at this. But either way, this was the point now where saying something was kind of a no-brainer. Uh, it was not a situation where I had to make any type of physical move, really. I wasn't going to do anything desperate, like indicate I was super anxious at the moment or nervous or anything like that. So I physically wasn't planning on waving or running or anything like that. And it just made sense that I would yell or say something loud at that moment. 2 in the morning, mind you, so I was being a jerk. And I shouted out something like, woo, yo, hey, yo, right? Something loud and non-words. And that's all I did. That was the big crime that I committed that night, a violation of everybody's safety, I know. And that makes me a bad person, throw me in jail, whatever. Either way, um, it worked. We both walked towards each other. And again, once we met, we exchanged like an awkward moment where I didn't have any sort of clever line. I was super nervous. So I just said, hi, my name is Will, etc. We shook hands. I couldn't really come up with anything to say. It was really kind of a boring, hey, what's your name? Oh, you smell nice. Oh, wow, that's a nice this, nice that. Just compliments. I was pretty inept at the time, but I felt really confident that she had decided to talk to me. And so it was kind of like a victory. Now, when I yelled and all that, I was planning on walking away, but she stopped. She got, I guess, prepared to meet up and talk, and I didn't feel like this was at all not a mutual thing. But at the moment when we were talking, I realized I had no plan. I was well over my head. I was just overwhelmed, and I wasn't thinking straight. So I was gonna go just say goodbye, but then something happened. I had gotten her number, things were fine in that sense, but it wasn't a real connection. So something kicked in like an instinct, similar to what happened when I just called out. I was like, look, right now is the moment you have to call out. And then later on, towards saying goodbye, it was like I had built up this sort of uh, character where it was so unusual and rare that something was to follow that was also going to be different. And so, just like before with the instinct, even though I didn't know what to say, somehow I knew what to do. And so I switched into that same mind state and same mode. And I realized that I got the stop, I got her to talk to me somehow. The rarity made it an experience worth telling, but I didn't quite understand or get it. So I was in good shape despite being dumbfounded, unable to speak. And so that's what I guess pushed me forward in the conversation towards just shutting up and figuring out that that was the best course. I leaned in for a kiss instead of saying the words goodbye. She kissed me. Um, that was the big end to the story, really. That's the finale. That's how I know it was a success. It was a nice time. But some people will say this story is too unrealistic, it's too bullshit, it's too unique, not everyone can do that. And that all may be perfectly fine and true. It was a crazy story, I will admit. Something might have been in the full moon or something like that. And really, it's just one of a million stories. It doesn't excuse what anybody else has been through. But at this point, I just want to say that there's people talking about how rape culture consists of people making sexual advances on the street. And I just don't know if I can blanket indict everybody. It's a very tough thing for me to do that. I think even if you are a scumbag, you deserve to be treated like an individual scumbag and not part of some collective group of scumbags, because that's how people hide in the cracks. And that really bothers me. Like I said, when people do this thing and they think it's because, oh, they're not doing it wrong, that is bad. But that sort of plays into what my opponent might say, that you can't allow it at all. And I just don't agree. So it's tough. But anyway, just before I leave, I just want you to know that as I was pulling away from the kiss, we both said goodnight to each other. And it was one of those weird, strange moments where we were going to say goodbye and it felt very bittersweet instead of like it feeling like we were going to meet up again. Maybe I was too young. Maybe she was not from around there. I really don't remember anything about her except kind of how she was dressed and how she looked. It's kind of like, I guess, my type, whatever that is. And so it was great, but I sensed a little bit of regret on her part. And I really didn't have a clear understanding on my part of what just happened. So I figured, oh, well, maybe there was just that awkwardness and that's all it meant. But I did wonder why I felt awkward after the kiss and saying goodbye. And then it kind of dawned on me that maybe she gave me a fake phone number. This was this sort of in my head that night because I was like, I don't really get why she was like that. And honestly, that's the only answer I could come up with, is that maybe it was like a weird thing where I got a kiss even though she wasn't interested. And it didn't even equate to me that that might mean something beyond just like, wow, what happened? I don't get it. Weird. So now I have to bring this to the point where I have to bring up that people are going to argue that maybe I was being too forceful in a lot of ways and sort of cornering her, pressuring her to stop for me, pressuring her to kiss me, pressuring her to give me her phone number, and that all of this was sort of not her voluntary decision or in some way bad because it condones this sort of behavior. And I really don't know how to speak on that, except that the next day, after feeling like I didn't know what the story was, I did try calling her, and I honestly I didn't know what I was going to say. It was almost like I just wanted to make sure this number was real. And in fact, something happened where I'm not going to say it was a dead number or a busy signal or anything. I just don't remember. But eventually, I got this feeling that it was not the correct number. I think it was like 2 days later when I called, and it was not working. So clearly, it was not the type of phone number that was going to ever work. Maybe she had left the country that night or something crazy like that. Honestly, she could have been not from around there. She didn't have like amazing command of speech either. I was not saying much, but I get the sense that she had an accent. Anyway, I was 17. This would have been in 2001. Cell phones weren't as prevalent back then. Maybe she had, again, some sort of phone issue. Either way, we never spoke really again after that, and I think it was a fake number. That's just how I'm going to play it. So based on that, it's kind of weird. It gives me a little bit of doubt. If it was a fake number, why did she kiss me? So am I insane? Because now with rape culture being taught to me by the feminist community, and all the world seems to be paranoid and with fear, and often for good reason, it kind of leads me to now conclude that I must have been misreading her signals and that she kissed me because she was afraid, and in some way I was the bad guy. I might have been contributing to rape culture. It might have been something in my rapist nature as a man. That might be an argument that some people would make. And, you know, it's interesting to go into it all. Like, I happen to kind of appreciate theories that are not based on individuals so much as the collective philosophy. I personally like to trust individuals and give them the credit to make their case and argue their case. As I said earlier, my case would have been she gave me a fake number and then I kissed her and she kissed me and it was fine, but that doesn't necessarily gel with everybody. I don't know anything about this woman, where she's from, how old she was. Everything about it could have been weird. She might have been thinking, why am I kissing a young guy, etc. Either way, it's a terrible, terrible outcome in a sense, because it could have given me sort of the incentive to do this again. I really never became a fan of it. It also could have been a great outcome if I had sort of turned this into something great somehow. I don't know if it's possible. But regardless, let me know if you buy into any of this rape culture. Is catcalling stuff? Obviously, catcalling is disrespectful in many cases. I don't know how it exactly ties into the culture of fear and victimhood that I think is a huge problem that gets us to sort of face off with one another in a divide and conquer sense. So get at me in the comments. Let me know what you think.
Ha ha ha, everybody's laughing when they pull the magnum. That's how it goes, from life till death. Nobody knows who might be next. Heavy in debt, that's why I write the check for the resources I might collect. With most struggles, I'm running on the grind. A true hustler knows how to move